"Nu, ito bilo prosto," she once said, leaning back in her chair, tapping the pencil lightly against the edge of the desk in our storeroom. Well, that was easy. That's what it sounded like in English, but her voice, that casual half-laugh, gave it a sharper note. I used to think it was just an offhand remark about the day's accounting. Now, whenever I recall those words, the memory drips with irony so thick I can taste it. I'm sitting here, alone in the break room, staring at the phone in my hand. It's not even mine, it's his. I found it under a stack of receipts, left behind after one of his visits. And right there on the lock screen is a photograph of her. My wife. She's in profile, her hair cascading over one shoulder, eyes lit up with a smile that I haven't seen her wear in years. It's an intimate snapshot, the kind that belongs in personal archives or a secret folder. Not on some other man's phone. My stomach lurches. There's a sour, metallic taste rising in my throat. But I refuse to let myself look away. I hold his phone, press the screen to keep it from going dark, and stare at her face. The timing, how he must have caught her in that perfect swirl of laughter, maybe after he'd whispered something only she could hear. The photo glows for another few seconds, and then it locks again. For a moment, I see my own reflection in the black mirror of his phone, tired eyes, set jaw, regret etched into every line on my face. I remember exactly how it started. The store, our family store, had always been a little side dream, a place we could call our own. She handled the finances, and I dealt with inventory, deliveries, the day-to-day grunt work. We never made a fortune, but it was enough for the mortgage, some small luxuries. We got along, or so I told myself. We'd have the usual spats about inconsequential stuff, why she spent too much on new display racks, or how I forgot to order more produce bins, but it seemed normal. People fight, they cool off, they move on. When shoplifting incidents got more frequent, I installed cameras in the main hall. Just for security, I told her. A measure of safety. One in the corner above the glass displays, and another in the small accounting office in the back, near the safe. She shrugged, said okay. I guess we both assumed we'd never care enough to watch hours of empty footage. But I did watch. A habit formed after an attempted break-in a few months ago. I found myself reviewing recordings whenever something nagged at me. Then, on a random morning, I decided to check last night's feed for anything suspicious. And suspicious I found. It was just after midnight, the overhead lights dimmed. The camera in the small office flickered to life on my screen. I saw her first, hunched over some paperwork. Then he appeared, dark hair, teacherly stance, a jacket folded over his arm. Mark Simmons, that's his name. Some guy we both knew casually, someone she'd introduced me to as a friend who might invest in our expansion or something along those lines. Next, the scene played out like a badly written soap opera. At first, they talked, a few documents spread across the desk. And then he reached out, brushed a strand of hair off her cheek. She didn't slap his hand away. I wanted to tell myself maybe it was a misunderstanding, some comforting lie, until I saw how her hand slowly slid up his arm. They exchanged hushed whispers, words I couldn't hear through the camera's feed. Then he leaned in. She let him. Her hand snaked around his neck as she turned her face up to his. The angle, the lighting, everything left no doubt. I watched them kiss. I heard her laugh. A soft, throaty chuckle that once was mine to hear. A pang shot through my chest. My stomach churned. I should have stopped there, but I kept watching like a fool who can't tear his eyes away from a grisly accident. He took her by the hips, laid her back across the desk. Paperwork slid to the floor, a pen clattered away. I saw her lips form some breathless joke, she was smiling in a way I hadn't witnessed in years. And I just stared at the screen, too numb to feel anything but the chill that crept along my spine. Even behind the cheap camera lens, the heat between them was obvious. Her moan reached me through the tinny audio feed, and that cut deeper than any knife. I shut the footage off. I remember the silence of that moment, my heart pounding so loudly it filled the void. Then the sound of me hitting save, not sure what possessed me. I guess I wanted evidence. The dusty whir of my laptop as I copied the footage onto a flash drive. The dryness in my mouth as I realized what I just watched and the final click that ended that private little film. I didn't confront her right away. Maybe I wanted to see if she'd show guilt, if she'd look me in the eye differently. But she came home, gave me the usual peck on the cheek, said she had a headache, and went straight to bed. No sign of remorse, no second glance. That's what ripped me apart, the casual ease. Well, that was easy, I could almost hear her voice in my head. The next day, I transferred the incriminating files onto multiple storage devices. I may have been hurt, but I wasn't stupid. I was methodical about it, just like I am with inventory. Make backups. Keep them safe. Label them discreetly, tuck them away. Because after those first waves of heartbreak and disbelief crashed through me, I felt something else stirring, a cold, angry determination. If she thought I was a nobody, if Mark Simmons figured he could steal from my table and walk away scot-free, they were mistaken. I decided to call him first. I found his number easily, saved in her phone. My voice was as level as I could manage, the phone pressed tight to my ear, sweat glistening on my temple. He answered in that mild teacher voice, polite but surprised at my call. "Mark," I said, fighting the tremor in my voice, "I know about you. And her." There was a pause so thick you could have cut it with a knife. "What?" he finally managed, tone shifting from confusion to dread. I cleared my throat. "I have footage. You and Sarah. Don't bother denying it, I saw everything. I have copies. Multiple." My words tumbled out so calmly, I almost frightened myself. "If you think you can get away with it, you're wrong. I can show it to your wife. To the principal at your school. You teach kids, right? I wonder what your boss will say about your moral standards." He went silent again, probably imagining everything crumbling around him. I relished that hush, maybe it was the first time I felt some control over this vile situation. "What do you want?" he finally whispered. "Right now," I said, letting the tension breathe. "Just letting you know that I have it. That I'm aware. That you and Sarah crossed a line." His breathing grew ragged. "Listen, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You touched my wife, in my store, on the desk I paid for." I clenched my fist until my knuckles went white. "This is your warning, Mark. I'm not confronting you for an apology. I'm telling you, if you so much as get near her again, I'll share those files with everyone. Starting with your wife." He tried to speak, but I ended the call. My hand shook with a blend of rage and triumph. I slumped back in my chair, exhaling through clenched teeth. Next came the call to her. She sounded tired, or maybe just busy, when she picked up. "Yes?" she asked, almost impatient. "Sweetheart," I said in a low voice, "I hope you're alone right now. Because we need to talk." That's when I told her about the cameras. About how I'd watched the footage. I didn't raise my voice, didn't scream or cry. I just painted it all out in cold detail. The hush on her end was complete. I pictured her standing in some aisle or in the back office, her face drained of color. I also recorded the audio, I said, lying about that part, though the camera did pick up enough moans and whispers for plausible evidence. "It's all there, Sarah. Every moan, every joke, every time you said his name. And I can upload it anywhere. I can send it to your coworkers. You remember we keep a second camera in the hall, right?" Another bluff, but she didn't know better. "That means I got the angle of you letting him in after hours. No one's gonna believe this is some drunken mistake. They'll see just how willingly you spread yourself for him. She made a small, strangled sound, then stammered something I didn't quite catch. "What do you want?" she asked, almost echoing his words. "Right now, I'm just letting you know." A steady calm overcame me again, like a cold wind blowing through my gut. "I'm not leaving you. I'm not divorcing you, yet. But understand, one wrong step, one more cozy rendezvous, and I share everything. And you know me, Sarah, I'll do it. So walk carefully." I ended the call. My heart hammered. For a long moment, I just stared at the phone, imagining the color draining from her cheeks. She was probably remembering how casually I'd mentioned the camera system from time to time. I suppose neither of us ever took it too seriously, until I saw what I saw. In the days that followed, I didn't yell or act out in any obvious way. Instead, I visited the store more often when her coworkers were around. I'd stroll in, greet them cheerfully, pretend everything was fine. But when I looked her way, there was a smile on my face that carried a dark edge. "Thanks for taking care of my wife, everyone," I'd say, voice dripping with sardonic courtesy. They'd nod, perplexed, while she stood there, eyes flicking around in panic. She looked like a woman stepping on shards of broken glass, every movement cautious, every glance filled with dread, as if she were expecting me to lash out at any moment. But I didn't. I just let the tension coil in the air, and I thrived on it. A quiet menace. At night, we shared the same bed, still married, still living under the same roof. But the warmth was gone. She barely slept, I could hear her tossing and turning. The smell of her shampoo, once comforting, now felt like a punch in the gut. Sometimes she'd start to say something, maybe an attempt at apology or explanation, but I'd turn over, back to her. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I wanted her to feel the cold distance, the same ice that had formed in my chest. Days stretched into weeks. She seemed to shrink, physically and emotionally. No more fancy makeup, no extra touches to her appearance. I saw her in the mirror one morning, brushing her hair, dark circles under her eyes, her lips pressed tight. She caught my gaze, flinched. Then she looked away. Something in me twitched, a pang of old affection, but I crushed it. She'd chosen her path. Now she had to walk it. And Mark? He was a ghost. He must have told her about my threat. He stopped coming by the store for anything, not even to check out the new shelves, or drop by for a chat. Good. Let him stay away. But that didn't satisfy me completely. My anger demanded more retribution, a deeper punishment. Something to match the hollowness inside me. One afternoon, I overheard her whispering into the phone. Probably to him. She didn't say much, just hushed fragments. "He's scaring me, no, I can't talk, I think he'll do it." Then she hung up, eyes brimming with tears. I walked into the room, forcing a casual calm. She jumped, as if caught stealing from the till. "What was that about?" I asked, an undercurrent of malice beneath my quiet tone. She shook her head mutely. I stepped closer until she was backed against the wall. "Say it," I insisted. "Say it honestly, for once." Her lips trembled. Mark is just worried," she mumbled. He thinks you might." I let a slow smile curl my mouth. "He should be worried. And you should be too." She opened her mouth, maybe to plead, but no words came. I gave her a long stare, then turned and walked away. That was the last time she tried to mention him to me directly. In the middle of all this, I carried on the store's daily business as if nothing had changed. Our employees noticed something was off, the tension in the air was thick as tar, but no one dared to ask me or Sarah what was happening. At least not to our faces. I suspect the gossip behind the scenes flourished. We had the typical staff, a couple of part-timers who stocked shelves, a cashier or two who rung people up, an older lady who helped with bookkeeping. None of them seemed suspicious that there was an affair going on. They just felt the heaviness that clung to me like a storm cloud. I'll admit, a twisted part of me enjoyed watching her tiptoe around. Enjoyed the knowledge that Mark was a wreck, pacing around his own home, terrified I'd show the videos to his wife, to his principal, maybe to the entire town. That blackmail weighed on both their necks like a noose. Did it make me feel strong? Yes, in some bitter, hollow way. But it also reminded me that I was now the kind of man who'd stoop to this. A man who'd rather punish than solve. I told myself they both deserved it. Nighttime was the worst, though. Lying in bed, hearing her breathe. The memory of her laughter as she lay under him in our store's back office, it haunted me. I'd stare at the ceiling, darkness around me, my mind flickering with images from that damned footage. Over and over, I asked myself how it had come to this. Were we always on the brink? Had she always been looking for some thrill that I couldn't provide? In that lonely swirl of thoughts, my chest ached. A heartbreak so raw I could taste it. But come morning, I'd wear my mask of cold vengeance and set out to keep them trembling. I started making cryptic comments to staff whenever she was within earshot. Anyone new lurking after hours? I'd say with a forced chuckle. We've got cameras, you know, can't get away with anything. They'd laugh politely, not sure what I was getting at. She'd stand behind the counter, stiff, staring at me with silent horror. Then I'd walk off, whistling some tuneless melody, leaving her to stew. Day by day, my anger hardened into a quiet resolution. I pictured the final confrontation. Maybe I'd drop a flash drive on her desk, maybe I'd send the files to Mark's boss and see how fast his life imploded. But something in me demanded a more personal touch. I wanted them to look me in the eye and feel me tear their world apart, the way they'd torn mine. That chance came one evening when Mark summoned the courage to show up at our house. I heard the car pull up, recognized the silhouette in the driveway. I was alone in the living room, still wearing the jeans and t-shirt from work, finishing a sandwich I'd forced down out of habit more than hunger. Sarah was in the kitchen, aimlessly rearranging dishes, I guess. She saw him first through the window and froze. He rang the doorbell. I glanced at her from across the room, she looked pale as a sheet. My heart started pounding, adrenaline surging. "Open it," I said. She swallowed and did as told, though her hands trembled so badly she fumbled the latch. Mark stood there, tie askew, hair tousled like he'd been running his hands through it in agitation. He caught sight of me behind her shoulder, and his face tightened. I waved him in, forcing a polite smile, like I was greeting a door-to-door salesman. "Come on, Mark. Step inside." He stepped through, glancing from me to her. I closed the door behind him. For a moment, we just stood there, the hush so complete that the ticking of the kitchen clock thundered in my ears. "So," I finally said, "what brings you here?" He cleared his throat. This can't go on. The threats, the fear. I need to talk." I folded my arms. "Talk, then." Sarah hovered off to the side, arms wrapped around herself like she was warding off a chill. "I'm sorry for what happened," he began. I saw the flicker in her eyes, her gaze briefly lowered. "It was a mistake, we were caught up in something. Don't feed me that." My voice came out as a snarl, surprising even me. "It wasn't some drunken accident. I have hours of footage, Mark. You two didn't just slip up one night. This was deliberate." Repeated. His eyes flickered with guilt. "I know. It's my fault as much as hers. But you have to understand." "I don't have to understand anything." I took a step closer, felt the tension coil in my muscles. "You came here for what? Forgiveness? Mercy? I told you what happens if you go near her again. Are you that reckless or just plain stupid?" He sucked in a breath, tried to steel himself. "Look, I need you to leave my wife out of this. If you reveal this affair, it'll destroy her. she's fragile. She's had health problems. I can't. His trembling voice lit a spark of grim humor in me. Oh, so now you're worried about your wife. Where was that concern when you were screwing another man's spouse? I gave a harsh chuckle. You want to protect your wife by telling me to stand down. He rubbed a hand over his mouth, desperation in his eyes. I'll do anything. Just don't ruin her. Or me. Or, he shot Sarah a pleading look. We didn't mean for it to get so serious. She stayed silent. I could practically see her heart beating through her blouse, but she was too terrified to speak. Suddenly, the absurdity hit me, and a bizarre sense of black humor welled up. Say it honestly, I told Sarah, echoing the words I'd used before. Tell him what you told me. Or better yet, tell him what you told yourself when you let him into that office. How easy was it? My voice quavered with anger, but a short, bitter laugh slipped out. Speak up, Sarah. She drew in a shaking breath, opened her mouth. Nothing came. Then at last, I never wanted this to happen. A flicker of that old heartbreak seared my chest. Right, I said, voice low, just like that. Well, that was easy. Over and done. Except we're not done, are we? Mark took a single step forward, maybe an attempt at some show of courage. If you want me out of Sarah's life, fine. I'm out. I won't contact her again. But, please, I beg you, don't drag my wife into this. Don't send that video anywhere. Don't ruin my job. I stared at him. That entire tableau, the wife I no longer recognized, the man who had intruded on my marriage, unfolded in my own living room. A swirling mess of rage, betrayal, and a nauseating sense of power. With every breath, I felt the weight of my next words. I haven't decided what I'll do yet, I said, stepping back to pick up my half-eaten sandwich, just to underline how little I cared about their comfort. I guess it depends on my mood. On whether you or Sarah keep irritating me. He swallowed hard, eyes darting to Sarah. She refused to meet his gaze. I'll go, he murmured. I just wanted a chance to plead with you. He paused. I'm sorry. I waved him off with the sandwich in my hand. Then go. And if you have a shred of sanity left, don't come back. He turned, his footsteps echoing hollowly. Sarah followed him to the door. They exchanged a glance, one last look that she tried to hide from me. I saw it anyway. Then he was gone, out into the night. The silhouette of his car slid away from the driveway, headlights sweeping across our living room window. I set down my sandwich, appetite gone. Sarah closed the door quietly, still hugging herself. For a long time, we stood in silence. The tension threatened to snap the air in two. Eventually, she whispered, "He's not coming back." "That's right," I said. "You've both done enough damage." Then I turned and walked to the bedroom, leaving her alone in the dark living room. In the following week, she looked even more tormented, if that was possible. No calls from him, no messages, at least not on the phone she kept around me. Sometimes I'd catch her wiping her eyes at the corner of the store, or standing in front of the office door as if haunted by the memory of what took place behind it. Every time we had a staff meeting, she was jittery, eyes down. Customers started noticing her tired expression, even asking me quietly if everything was all right at home. I'd just give them a shrug and say, "Stress, maybe. You know how finances are." Then I'd turn away, lips curling into a harsh half-smile. In the background, I still had my backup files. A folder on my computer labeled something innocuous, plus a handful of USB drives locked in a metal container in the storeroom. Insurance. Proof. The way I saw it, if they dared step out of line, I'd pull the trigger on that loaded gun. The black humor in the back of my mind whispered, "Should you post it online? Print a few stills, hang them around town." But that was the anger fantasizing. I wasn't quite there. Yet. The nights at home were the worst, that old ache returning. I'd see the shadow of her shape under the blankets, remembering how once we used to wrap around each other and talk until dawn. How her laughter had lit up my dull life in the beginning. Then the memory of her moan under Mark's body would come back, and I'd feel an icy spike lodge in my chest. I wanted to hate her thoroughly, to never feel the slightest tenderness. But the reality was more complicated. There were moments I just felt numb. One day, I showed up at the store early. She was already there, sorting some receipts at the front counter. I leaned against the counter, quietly watching. She looked up, flinched. We'd barely exchanged any real words for days. "Tell me," I said, voice calm, "how long?" She didn't pretend not to understand. Her face contorted in pain. "A couple months," she managed, voice thin. My chest tightened. Even though I already knew, hearing it felt like a fresh blow. "Why?" She shut her eyes, breath trembling. "Because I was lonely. Because we stopped being," she swallowed. "We weren't close. I felt like a piece of furniture." He listened, and I made the mistake of thinking it was something more. She looked like she might collapse under the weight of her confession. And that small, battered piece of me that once loved her twisted inside. I forced a sneer onto my face. "So you hopped on his lap in our office. Classy." She said nothing, just stared down at her hands, which were clenched around the edge of a receipt so tightly her knuckles showed white. For a moment, I hovered there. I pictured myself telling her it could be okay, that we might fix this if she truly wanted to. But a raw voice in my head snapped, "Don't be a fool." I turned on my heel and left. So the next stage of my plan, my revenge, took shape in my head. Or maybe it was the final stage. I wanted them both to realize that crossing me wasn't just a miscalculation. It was the end of life as they knew it. But I couldn't do it half-baked. I wanted the tension, the fear, the humiliation to swell. That's why I called his wife. Yes, I had her number. It wasn't hard to find. The threat to expose Mark to her was overshadowed by the idea of letting her see it all. So I made that call. "Hello." Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Mrs. Simmons," I said, "I'm calling about your husband, Mark. There's something you should know." My words came out measured, quiet. "He's been seeing my wife. I have proof." She sucked in a sharp breath. "Who is this?" I told her my name. There was an intake of breath, a strangled half-sob. I thought so," she whispered. "I suspected, he's been so distant." "I have video," I continued, relentless. "I could send it to you. Or, if you prefer, I could show it to you in person." Her response was a shaky hush. She was likely reeling from the bomb I just dropped. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because he needs to face the consequences. And so does my wife." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You can see for yourself exactly how they've been spending their time." She hesitated, voice trembling. "Let me think, I don't know what to say." Please. I need a moment." But I pressed on, ignoring her plea. "We can meet tomorrow," I said, somewhere neutral. "I'll show you everything. Then you can decide what to do with it." She fell silent for a few more breaths, the line crackling. Then came a soft, "All right. Send me the time and place." Then I heard her break into muffled sobs. I hung up without another word, hands shaking slightly. Victory, or something like it, crackled through my veins. Part of me felt twisted, monstrous. How far had I fallen, that I was now coordinating a meeting with a stranger to blow up both our marriages in some twisted spectacle? But that's what I wanted, or at least what my anger demanded. They inflicted this pain on me, so I'd inflict it back, times two. I told myself I had the moral high ground. In truth, I just had the bigger weapon. But that meeting never happened. Because Mark intervened first. He showed up at the store late the next day, right when we were about to close. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed, half the staff already gone. I was finishing a stock check in the back aisle. Sarah was tidying up the register. He must have marched right past her. I heard footsteps. Turned around to see him standing there, eyes wild. Before I could speak, he grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and shoved me against the shelf. A few cans clattered to the floor. My first instinct was to shove him off, but something in me paused. I wanted him to show his true colors. "Don't you dare call my wife again," he hissed, voice low. "She's already sick. She can't handle this. This is between you, me, and Sarah. Leave her out of it." I smirked, even though my back ached from the impact. "Too late, buddy. I've already set the wheels in motion." He let out a tortured groan, eyes burning with desperation. "You'll kill her, you know that. Her heart condition, this stress," his voice shook. "I'm not exaggerating. You could be murdering her." His words gave me momentary pause. Murdering her? The thought that my revenge might kill an innocent woman. The weight of that moral line pressed on me. But then the swirl of betrayal rose again, and I didn't care. Not fully. All I saw was a man who had trampled my marriage, begging me to stop. "Get your hands off me," I growled. "Or I'll make sure that video is sent to every parent in your school district." He released me with a jerk, fists clenched at his sides. Sarah must have heard the commotion because she came running. She froze at the edge of the aisle, eyes darting between us. "Stop," she pleaded, voice shaking. "Mark, don't." He took a step toward her, voice cracking. "I can't watch him destroy my wife. You have to talk sense into him." She shook her head helplessly, tears brimming. "I can't control him. Don't you understand?" I straightened, face twisted in a sneer. "She can't control me any more than I could control her from jumping into your bed." Mark's hand twitched, like he might swing at me. But then something wilted in his eyes. He turned to Sarah. "You're letting this happen." And she just stared at the floor, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her silence was answer enough. In that moment, I felt an odd wave of pity for him. Or maybe for us all. This was so twisted, so far from anything we could fix. But I'd come too far down this dark path to turn back. "Get out," I said, voice deathly soft. "Before I make a scene. The staff might like to see what you're doing here after hours, teacher." He gave a final, agonized glance at Sarah, then stormed off. His footsteps echoed to the front door, which slammed shut behind him. I heard the jingle of the bell overhead, then silence. Sarah and I stood there, neither of us speaking. We heard his car engine rev and fade into the night. Then she bowed her head, tears dripping to the floor. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. I ran a hand over my face, exhaustion hitting me like a wave. "Because I can." She just wept, shoulders shaking. I stood there, hands in my pockets, feeling that old ache in my chest. But I couldn't bring myself to comfort her, not after what she'd done. That night, the nightmares came. I dreamed of the camera footage playing on loop, the store's overhead lights flickering, Sarah's laughter echoing in an empty corridor. Then it morphed into an image of me uploading the file, everything exploding in a swirl of digital chaos. In the dream, I heard a woman screaming. I wasn't sure if it was Sarah, Mark's wife, or me. I woke up with sweat pooling on my pillow, my breath ragged. In the darkness, I realized she was sitting up too, eyes wide, as if she could sense my turmoil. We didn't speak. We never spoke in those moments, just coexisted like strangers. The blackness between us so dense it felt suffocating. But in the morning, a new thought haunted me. If his wife truly had a fragile heart, if the shock of my revelations truly could kill her, I might become a murderer by proxy. Was that how I wanted my revenge to end? With an innocent woman's death? For the first time since this started, I felt a flicker of doubt. A crack in the wall of anger. It didn't erase what they did, the betrayal that burned like acid in my gut. But it made me pause. My mind wrestled with itself. They deserve to be punished, but do I want a life on my conscience? The day passed in a haze. I avoided calling his wife, avoided dealing with Sarah. I just drifted, stewing in my own confusion. By closing time, I was wound tight as a coil. On my drive home, I kept picturing that woman's face, someone I'd never met, collapsing from heartbreak or stress. The thought churned my stomach. At home, I found Sarah in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up when I entered, tears fresh on her cheeks. "It's gone too far," she whispered. I dropped my keys on the table. "What do you mean?" "Mark's wife is ill. You're going to kill her with this, or at least risk it. Don't do it. Please." She sniffled, drawing in a shaking breath. "I know I have no right to beg you for anything. But don't take it out on an innocent person." I felt my jaw clench. "She's the collateral. You should have thought about that before you started your fling." She let out a muffled sob. "I know. I know. I was so stupid, so selfish. But let her be. Let her just divorce him, or whatever. Just, please, don't push it into her face. Don't send her the video." My chest felt tight, breathing ragged. I turned away, glaring at the shadows on the wall. In them, I almost thought I could see that old memory of Sarah and me on our wedding day, smiling, full of hope. Where had that gone? She stood, stepping closer. I felt her behind me, trembling. "I'll do anything," she whispered. "Leave her out of it. If you want me gone, if you want me to sign over the store, I'll do it. Just," her breath caught. "Just don't punish someone who had nothing to do with this." I gripped the back of a chair until my knuckles ached. In that moment, I was forced to confront what I'd become, a man so consumed by anger that I was ready to blow up every life in the vicinity, regardless of guilt. The father I once was proud of, the caretaker for my aging mother, the respectable store owner, I was losing that man. "She's not the only innocent person in this," I said through clenched teeth. "What about me? I was your husband. Did you even think about me, about how I'd feel?" She made a soft keening sound in her throat. She stopped, powerless to argue. "I know," she whispered at last. The tension thickened. Then, like the final snap of a breaking cord, I let out a harsh exhale. "Fine," I said, words choking me. "I won't send it to her. You hear me? I won't show it to her. But don't think for a second you're off the hook." Relief flickered on her face, mingled with despair. "Thank you," she whispered. I stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me, leaving her standing there in tears. The next day I tried to refocus on the store's business. At least that was something tangible. I was behind the counter, forcing a polite smile for customers, going through receipts. Occasionally, employees would ask if I was alright, and I'd wave them off. Just tired. But inside, I was a knot of conflicting emotions. My taste for revenge soured once I realized how deep the collateral damage could run. Late in the afternoon, Mark slipped in, looking pale and hollow. He waited until the last customer left, then approached the register with shaking hands. I gave him a cold stare. "Why are you here?" I said flatly. He swallowed. I heard you might have changed your mind about telling my wife." Probably from Sarah, though she wasn't at the store at the moment. I'd given her the day off. I said nothing, just stared. He dropped his gaze. "I have no right to ask you for anything more. But, Thank you. If it's true, thank you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Don't thank me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I'm not a murderer. He flinched. I understand. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. I stared at him, remembering the sight of him and Sarah tangled on that desk, that sound of her laughter. My hands trembled with rage. You took something from me, I hissed. And I'm not sure I'll ever get it back. He nodded, eyes glimmering. I know. Don't ever come here again, I said. If she wants to see you, she'll have to find you. But if you dare step in this store or near my house, I will ruin you. Understood? He stared at me, tears welling in the corners of his eyes. Then he gave a single nod. Understood. For a moment, we just locked gazes. He looked like a man on the brink of collapse, guilt and fear etched into every line of his face. I felt no pity. Then he turned and left, the door's chime echoing ominously in the quiet store. After that, the days stretched into a heavy routine. Sarah and I lived like strangers under one roof. She no longer tried to justify herself, and I no longer threatened to release the footage. Sometimes she'd catch my eye, as if searching for any sign of forgiveness. I gave her none. But the raw anger that once fueled me had dulled into a bitter emptiness. I'd lie awake at night, remembering the early days of our marriage, remembering the small private jokes, her playful jabs. I'd recall how proud I was when we first opened the store, how we cut the ribbon together, beaming as a local reporter snapped a photo. Then the memory of her moan, that half-laugh during the betrayal, would resurface, and the cycle of pain began anew. One evening, about a month after I discovered the affair, I found myself alone in the store late, flipping off the lights. The place smelled of old cardboard and cleaning solution. The aisle where Mark had pinned me to the shelf was neat and orderly now. The back office was dark. I walked toward it, phone flashlight illuminating the corridor. My footsteps echoed. Inside that cramped office, the desk was still there, maybe a little scuffed at the edges. I ran my hand across its surface, imagining them lying here, the heat of their bodies, their whispered words. My stomach clenched. I wanted to smash the desk to pieces. Instead, I sank into the old swivel chair. The camera up in the corner silently observed. The entire store felt like a giant tomb, filled with ghosts of what once was. We'd had a life, she and I. Now we only had fragments. And I realized, sitting there in the darkness, that the final blow was yet to come. Because despite my threats, my blackmail, my intimidation, I hadn't truly ended it. I was letting it fester. The question was, did I want an ending at all? I typed a message to my lawyer friend, asking what a divorce might look like in terms of property, the store, finances. The lines of text glowed on my screen, an unanswered question. My thumb hovered over send, but I hesitated. A part of me wanted to say, to hell with her, file for divorce, and start anew. Another part dreaded it, maybe from fear of being alone, maybe from the memories we once shared. But I knew something had to give. This half-life of cold revenge was suffocating us both. I locked the phone without sending. My thoughts were swirling. Memories flashed, her small gestures of affection, the time she surprised me with a birthday party, the arguments we once had about whether we'd adopt a dog, she said no. The swirl continued to that fateful camera footage, my rage, my blackmail. My illusions about who I was cracked wide open. At some point, I must have drifted into a doze, because I woke to the beep of my phone. The clock read 2:47 a.m. A message from Sarah, "Where are you?" That was all. I rubbed my eyes, ignoring it. Part of me wanted her to worry. Another part recognized the cruelty of that but didn't care. I eventually stood, switched off the last lights, locked up, and drove home. The house was silent. She lay in bed, still awake, or at least with her eyes closed but breathing in that shallow, anxious way. I stripped off my clothes, slid under the covers. The tension between us was a living thing, pulsing with every breath. Days became weeks again. We existed in a stalemate. I kept the footage locked away, my loaded gun. She tiptoed around me, trying not to provoke me further. Mark stayed away, presumably dealing with the fallout at home. The store functioned. Bills were paid. My mother was in a care facility. I visited her once a week, and she'd ask, "How's Sarah?" I'd lie and say, "She's busy, but she's fine." Because I couldn't bear to tell my old mother the truth. And inside me, a quiet madness brewed. I'd find small ways to punish Sarah, slight insults, refusing to let her plan anything, ignoring her presence. She withered under it, but I wasn't satisfied. One night, I came home late from a supply run and found her in the kitchen, trying to cook dinner. She looked up, eyes rimmed with red. "I made lasagna," she said in a trembling voice. "Your favorite." I stared at it, the smell filling the kitchen. Once upon a time, I would have felt genuine warmth for such a gesture. Now it felt like a cheap bandage over a bullet wound. "I'm not hungry," I muttered, heading for the living room. She followed me, voice raw. "Please, just sit with me. Let's talk, or eat, or something. I can't take this limbo anymore." I turned, anger flaring. "What do you want from me? Forgiveness? A reset? Like we can just wave a wand, and your betrayal disappears?" Her eyes welled up. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But can we at least talk? I feel like a ghost in my own home. If you want a divorce, let's discuss it. If you want me to leave, just say so. Anything's better than this slow torture." A bitter laugh bubbled up. "Slow torture. That's about right. Now you know how it feels." She flinched, tears slipping down. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was hollow. Finally, something broke in me. I sank onto the couch, elbows on my knees, burying my face in my hands. My shoulders started to shake. Damned if I'd cry, but I was close. She stepped closer, then knelt on the floor in front of me. She didn't dare touch me, just hovered there, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I couldn't look at her. "You don't know how it feels," I mumbled. "Every night, replaying that damned footage in my head. Hearing you laugh. Like I was a fool." Her voice cracked. "It wasn't about you. I was stupid, I was bored, I wanted attention, I don't even have a good excuse. I wish I could undo it, but I can't." She bowed her head, sobbing quietly. And in that raw moment, I felt something shift inside me. There was no neat fix, no easy solution. But the anger that had fueled me for so long was at war with a heartbreak that longed to find any relief. I didn't speak. Didn't move. Just let the silence envelop us. After a while, she stood, wiped her eyes, and left the room. I sat there for hours, staring into nothing, locked in a cage of my own resentment. It was another few days before the last hammer fell. I got a call from a private number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. A soft female voice spoke on the other end. "It's me," she said. "Mark's wife," I realized. She must have found my number again. My stomach tightened. "I thought you weren't going to meet me," I said tersely. A shaky exhale. "Mark told me he asked you not to. That he begged you not to show me anything. And, well, I don't need to see it. I know my husband cheated. I confronted him. He admitted it. I'm divorcing him." Her voice wavered. "But I just wanted to speak to you once, to say, I'm sorry." I froze. "You're sorry?" "I'm sorry you were hurt by this too," she whispered. "I don't know you, but I know the pain that betrayal brings. I wanted you to know I'm leaving him. There's nothing for you to expose anymore. And, I'll be okay. My health is my own responsibility. He's moving out. My chest felt oddly hollow. The weapon I'd been holding, my threat to ruin him, was effectively disarmed. She was divorcing him, so the scandal was out. I swallowed. I see. She paused. I hope you find peace, somehow. Then she hung up. Just like that. I stood there in my living room, phone in hand, staring at the silent screen. So Mark's life was effectively uprooted anyway. His wife found out, not through me, but through him. My vengeance had happened, albeit not in the way I'd meticulously planned. But it was done. He was paying the price. That left Sarah and me, two shells inhabiting a broken marriage. The final confrontation I'd craved came and went, in a whimper, not a roar. I closed my eyes. Tried to find any sense of satisfaction in this outcome. But all I felt was emptiness. The illusions were shattered, yes. Everyone was in ruins, Mark losing his marriage, Sarah living in guilt, me stuck with a savage ache where my heart used to be. And the store, that symbol of our shared life, stood as a silent witness. Sarah found me an hour later, standing in the kitchen in a stupor. She looked exhausted, hair a mess, face drawn. "What is it?" she asked softly. I turned to her, unsure what to say. Then I just said, "He's getting divorced." She let out a breath, slumping against the doorway. "Because of me. Because of us." "Yeah." Silence spooled out again. Eventually, I reached into my pocket, withdrew the small USB drive, one of several backups. I placed it on the kitchen table between us. Her eyes flicked to it. "All the recordings are on here," I said quietly, voice tight. "The ones I made copies of, at least. I have others. But this is the main version." She pressed her lips together, tears pooling. What are you going to do with it?" I stared at the tiny device, symbol of my anger and heartbreak. The final bullet in my loaded gun. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand. Then, slowly, I set it down again. My breath came out in a shudder. "I don't know," I admitted. The raw honesty of that statement surprised us both. She looked at me, eyes brimming. We stood like that for a long moment, the tension thick. Then, with trembling hands, she reached out and covered the USB drive with her palm, as if to shield it from sight. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "I'll accept it." I nodded, not trusting my voice. My throat felt like sandpaper. In that charged moment, two futures spread out before us, one where I used that final bullet to blow everything apart, file for divorce, maybe out her to the entire neighborhood. Another where we slowly tried to salvage the shattered pieces of our life, uncertain if it was even possible. Neither path felt easy or clean. And the worst part was, I had no idea which to choose. Our marriage didn't end that night, nor did we magically repair it. We simply continued to exist in that uneasy space, the knowledge of what happened lingering in every room of the house, every aisle of the store. The next week, I visited my mother and lied again, telling her everything was fine. The store kept running. Our employees gossiped. And Sarah and I, we cohabited in a hush, too weary to fight, too haunted to be normal. Sometimes, late at night, I'd still see the flicker of that footage in my mind, the way her body arched under him, how she laughed. I'd feel my fists clench around the sheets. Then I'd swallow the bitterness, reminding myself Mark's wife was an innocent bystander. I had only just spared her from the worst. Some nights, Sarah would cry quietly in the bathroom. I never checked on her, never offered comfort. I told myself I owed her nothing. And yet I couldn't fully walk away. Not yet. Because, in the end, maybe the worst part of betrayal isn't the act, it's the emptiness and indifference that follows. She and I were living that hollow aftermath, uncertain if there was a shred of love left, or if we were just two lonely people too worn out to make a final cut. That's how it ends for now, no grand finale, no explosive confrontation. Just a silent house, a closed store, two people drifting in parallel lines under one roof. Maybe there will be divorce papers tomorrow. Maybe a second chance, if I ever find it in me to open my heart again. But that's the final truth of betrayal, it leaves no tidy resolution, just a scar that aches where the trust used to be. So I stand here, in the half-lit hallway of my own home, that USB drive buried in some drawer. Sarah is in the bedroom, probably crying herself to sleep. And me? I'm wide awake, locked in this quiet war with my own ghosts. No matter what I do from here, I know one thing, the life I had is gone. I guess, in the end, well, that was easy, was a lie all along. Because there's nothing easy about waking up every day and remembering how it all fell apart. And there's no quick fix for the emptiness that's left behind. Maybe that's the real price of betrayal, the creeping realization that the worst part isn't the act itself, but the cold, awful void that remains once the anger has burned away. The slow fade into the night, with no final slam of the door, no dramatic exit. Just the two of us, haunted, waiting for a tomorrow that might never bring relief.